welcome back to Joygasm, a video game and movie podcast. I'm Russ, Xbox Live Toaster 360. He is Steve, Xbox Live Stevovich. And James Gunn has done it again in episode 235 today, August 6th, 2021. We're going to be getting right into our topic of the day, which is the Suicide Squad movie review. So there's no need to fast forward or look at the detailed section down below. Unless, of course, you want to look at timestamps, which, you know, if we're feeling saucy, maybe we'll put them in there, depending on what we're talking about during this little show of ours. Steve, welcome back to Mikasa.
Thank you.
Let's just get right into it. I say, give the spoiler alert right now as opposed to later on. We're going to be going into spoiler territory. We're going to be talking about all kinds of stuff out there. So if you haven't seen the film, you may want to pause us. If not, let's continue.
Harley Quinn's in it, Russ.
Harley Quinn is in it.
Let's just get right into spoilers right now.
Yeah, exactly.
A shark person's in it too.
Mm-hmm.
Well, first I want to ask you, Russ.
Yes, I love it when you ask me questions, Steve.
I want to ask you, did you recognize where you saw Polka-Dot Man before? Tell me. Where have you seen him, Russ?
Oh, I've seen him. I've seen him.
Where have you seen him, Russ?
I've seen him. And Christopher Nolan's Batman.
Ah, nuts.
Oh, yeah.
Man, I thought I had that one. I was like,
Oh, yeah. Christopher Nolan.
where was he? What scene is he in? Huh?
Oh. Oh. He is in Batman the Dark Knight.
Yeah, yes.
Well, I'm clarifying just in case you were wondering if I knew which one, because he could have been Batman Begins, could have been Batman.
Nah, definitely not Batman
Rises.
Yeah, no.
Batman the Dark Knight. Specifically, he was one of the officers during the whole guard with the guns where they're doing the salute.
Right.
And they were able to capture him and they were interrogating him.
Yeah.
And he gave that wonderful, brief, creepy performance, which was awesome. Like he, even that small little bit just helped to just push the Batman the Dark Knight even into even more awesome, legendary territory.
It was Harvey Dent who was doing the old behind closed doors, back alley interrogation for him. He goes, "You're going to tell me where the Joker is. You're going to tell me." And he goes, and he goes, "You're not going to kill me?" He goes, "No, I'm going to leave it up to fate. Heads, you die." Or no, it was tails. You die. Heads,
you live.
Tails, you die. He goes, "Bing."
Well,
he goes, live to tell another tale. You guys like, he goes, "But we're going to try again." Bing, it's like, "I'll tell you."
and that's when Batman catches the coin. Remember, he's like, "You leave a man's life with a chance."
It's
Oh, it's so good. It's so good.
Oh, boy.
But no, I did recognize him. I was very happy to see him in more of a prominent role in this film.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, Steve. Oh my goodness.
You saw it on the big screen.
I did. I saw it on the big screen and I had just high hopes going into the film. Those high hopes were met through and through as far as I'm concerned. I have no idea like what you thought of the film. What did you think of the film, Steve?
Well, let me say this. The first Suicide Squad, I just figured I'd delete that memory and put something more valuable in that memory space in mine.
Did you actually watch it or not?
I watched it over here.
Oh, we watched it together?
I watched it on that couch over there with you.
Oh, man.
Again,
I hope you don't take any offense to that, but that movie was terrible. It was so bad. The only thing that was good was Margot Robbie and an entire disaster of a film.
The only thing I do remember about that night is that I spent it over here with you. The rest of the movie, yeah, Will Smith's in it, and Margot Robbie, we were cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs over, and the rest of the film, I really do not remember that much about.
Didn't you fall asleep during that movie?
I was probably getting the nods.
I think you fell asleep like halfway through, and I kind of had to like jostle you.
Like, hey, you still watching? Yeah.
Not that he was missing out on much, but still, I'm like, hey, you're over here watching a movie.
And I didn't even like waste my time with Birds of Prey.
That was disappointing as well. Yeah.
So I went into this one with my expectations right down here. Not the bottom of the bottom. I mean, James Gunn was directing this one, so I mean,
but still, like you were in the right to be cautious.
Yes. So I walked away actually feeling pretty good about this one. It was not hilarious, and I really don't know what to expect. I knew it wasn't going to take itself seriously. I mean, look at some of the costumes. Peacemaker.
Peacemaker.
Yeah. Pacemaker.
I got one of them.
I do heart attacks.
Yeah,
that's my ability.
I'm going to kick the living. You psych.
And with was it King Shark or the
King Shark.
So I mean, it's not taking itself that seriously. So I thought, okay, man, note to self, it's not going to be all action. It's not going to be hilarious, but I'm still being cautiously optimistic. So I'm glad it was rated R. I was very happy that it was rated R because, I mean, some of those comic books are rated R. Let's just be real. They are kind of gory. They are kind of violent. And so with the title of Suicide Squad and a bunch of villains or anti-heroes, whatever you want to call them, there's going to be some death and destruction.
Indeed.
Of the unmerciful kind.
Well, and I'm really happy too about how we're seeing more of a trend towards the rated R rating for more and more of these comic films. So like if we think about, I mean, I think even Blade may have been rated R back in the day, which was, I mean, that came out back in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
And since that time, Deadpool has come out. That has been very successful. That film, I don't think would have nearly been as successful if it had like a PG-13 rating. So then we go to the Suicide Squad once again. Like they're just comic books, as you know, they're not the same as like the Archie comics or Calvin and Hobbes comics. They're a lot more
The Far Side.
Yeah. They're just a lot more bloody and violent, and then they deal with more kind of more adult issues, if you will.
Right.
And like, I mean, I think that Marvel, to a certain extent, has been successful in their MCU movies where they're able to kind of achieve that PG-13 rating. But right. I am wondering, like, are they going to be able to continue down that road moving into the next phase, or are they going to start to entertain you? I mean, I know for a fact that Disney has already greenlit Deadpool 3 to be rated R.
Yeah.
Which is kind of a big deal when you think about how it's coming from Disney.
And they're making another Blade.
They are making another Blade.
Which was, I mean, if they're going to be like, oh, you can bring the kiddos to this one. I mean, this is the Blade for the family. They got to be, that one's got to be rated R also.
He doesn't actually shred them with his teeth. He just kind of nibbles a little bit on their neck. Yeah. Just a little bit. Just a little tickle nibble.
Little pinchers.
Think of it almost like Eskimo kisses with his mouth.
Oh, gosh.
On your neck.
And he sings a Disney tune while doing it.
One that gets stuck in your ear and just repeats over and over and over and over again.
Anyways, so it wasn't hilarious. It was funny, but it was a fun time, and John Cena is in it, of course. And I don't think I've ever taken John Cena seriously in like anything, even if he's trying to be serious. He's just not. I don't know. So this one was, he fit that role perfectly.
Oh, yes, definitely. I agree.
And I saw Sylvester Stallone on it. I'm like, who's Sylvester? What? Sylvester who? What in the world? And then I never saw him. And it just kind of went to the wayside. Like, oh, I just saw that in the credits somewhere. And then it wasn't until this evening when I started watching it again with my wife. I go, I bet he's the voice of King Shark. And sure enough, the more I watched him, I'm like, that's Sylvester Stallone right there.
Yeah.
His voice sounds a little more cleaned up though. Like if you watch him like in interviews, and he's got a deep voice, but it's aged a little bit, but it sounds real clean,
real rich.
Yeah, rich is
absolutely. No, and especially like when you think of like all the different tricks that Hollywood has in the audio studios and stuff. I mean, they can make a lot of people's voices sound a whole lot different or whatever. But I mean, he already is working with quite a bit. So, no, I thought the film was so much fun. It's amazing to me because you know, when I think of like using the word fun, 'cause I was trying to think of like what's the one word that comes to mind? And apparently I'm not alone in this, because I've seen several other people resort to the same word, which is like this movie is just a lot of fun. And not only that, but like you could tell like the cast and crew were having fun as well. Like as they were shooting this, like we've talked about this in the past with some other types of films, but there's these movies that come along where like, as you're sitting there watching it, you can tell they're having a good time. They're having a blast making a movie. And I really got that sensation when it came to the Suicide Squad, where like every scene, you can tell that like they were having kind of a really fun, creative brainstorm, trying to figure out how can we make this scene cool? Okay, how can we make this next scene even cooler than the last scene? And how can we make it memorable and that sort of thing? And, you know, I think that it's, you know, you see so many films where like, yeah, they're good in their own way, but you can tell they're going through the motions. Like it's a job. It's not,
there's no chemistry.
Well, I mean, like maybe there is chemistry in some of those movies, but also
not as much.
Like you know, like you can tell it's like I only do 3 takes and I'm done, and the director has to work with those 3 takes, and if they don't like them, then too bad. I didn't get that sensation from this film. I think that like they would do like a take, and then all of a sudden when the take was over, they get back together and they watch it go, and then they probably do this whole like I got this great idea, let's do it again, let's do it again, you know, and just had this, I don't know, there was a certain kind of energy to it that I really appreciated.
I think that probably happened when they were trying to rescue was it Captain Flag or something like that, the dude who got rescued. He was like basically the one good guy sort of. And they go through that whole village and like wipe out the freedom fighters in a sense, where they were supposed to be all on their side.
Yes, let's talk about that for a minute, because that was hands down one of my favorite scenes.
It's the most tragic scene probably. But
well, and that's the thing was there was like this formula that James Gunn was successful with, I feel like, throughout the entire film, where he constantly kind of like subverted the audience's expectations on things with thinking about like, you know, what do we classify as a villain versus like an anti-hero, or maybe they still are villains, but then we empathize with them, or maybe we root for them, or whatever it is. And at the same time, like, here's a scene where, again, like we're under the impression that this is like the I don't know, the evil camp, right? Like evil military camp. And so they're going through. And what was so funny about that was like you have Bloodsport and Peacemaker get into this like one-upmanship. And every like method that where they're showing off their killing skills and stuff, it's like more and more creative and cool and just over the top. You know, you're just like, what on earth are they doing? And I felt like both actors did a great job of that. And even like toward the end of it, remember when Peacemaker does this thing where he has the exploding bullet,
right? And
then Bloodsport is just like, whatever. That's
a flesh wound. It's not. Yeah, it's not lethal. Mortal.
He's
not
like,
mortal.
well, it's different when it's dope as F.
Yeah, no. Well, he's like, well, he said it was a combustive round or something like that. So he's like, well, no one likes to show off. He's like, you can't even dope it.
Yeah.
He's like, he's right.
Yeah.
And I think that's important for actors like Idris Elba, because he's gone on record before going like, you know, I'm not really into superhero stuff. I just like, okay, you know, he's literally like, okay, it was a job.
Yeah.
And so I think it's important for that chemistry to work. And hey, let's just make this fun for everybody. It's not just another paycheck. Because or else I don't think they would have got him to sign on, quite honestly.
Well, and I think too, like, I think that, I mean, obviously we don't know like what his interest level was with the whole thing. Yeah. I will venture out a guess though and say like let's say for instance he had that mindset going into it. By the time that movie was over, he had a good time. Yeah. Like how could you not have a good time on a film like this?
So on the first Suicide, the one that came out, the one that was a couple years ago.
5 years ago.
Was it 5 years ago?
5 years ago, yeah.
Man, it's been that long.
Time flies.
So Will Smith was in it. Well, he wasn't Bloodsport. He was Deadshot, right?
Correct.
So what's the difference between Bloodsport and Deadshot?
Okay, so they are both villains in
Right.
the DC universe.
I gathered that part.
Okay, well, some people got confused because they were like, "Wait, is this just like another like a new name for
Is this Men in Black?
Deadshot?"
No.
Well, and actually, what's crazy is that they were actually like, well, I won't go into too much specifics just because
Okay.
it is in our trivia portion of the show, but essentially there was a lot of talk going on back and forth with like when Ildris came in, they were wondering, well, should he just play the role of Deadshot? And a decision was made, no, we're going to have him be a different villain, and I will stop there and we will
Okay.
come back to it when we get to the
Fine.
IMDb movie trivia. But no, like I was really, really happy with the selection that they made on that. And again, like before we digress off into something else, going back to that camp scene, it was so funny and so messed up at the same time where they get to the captain or whatever, Captain Flag or whatever his name is, and they think that like, you know, they're going out of their way because this is a side mission. This is not even
Right.
like the reason why they're there. And then they come to find out that like these are actually all freedom fighters, and it's a freedom fighter camp against the tyrannical government.
Dictatorship, yeah.
Then they had that kind of like, oh, that's bad.
I didn't see anybody back there. I don't know what happened. And then Polka-Dot dude's like, I saw them all as my mother and I killed them all. Like, oh gosh. The thing is too, like I had to explain a lot of this to my wife. You know, 'cause she hadn't, you know, besides Batman, of course, she doesn't really know the DC world, you know, less than I do. And so I'm going, you know, kind of laughing. And I look over at her and she's just kind of going, you know, looks at me like,
Did she watch it or did she go to bed?
so she watched it today.
Ooh.
Yes.
Oh, so the second time you saw it
Yeah.
was when she was seeing it for the first time.
Right. Yes, precisely. And so I had to like pause HBO Max and I had to go, okay, this is supposed to be kind of dark comedy. Just FYI, like they're not having fun, like killing people they're not supposed to, and like we're not glorifying violence just for the sake of. I mean, we kind of are, but I mean, it's supposed to be funny.
Well,
right?
well, you explained that they were all bad guys,
yes.
right? They
Yeah.
were not like Captain America or whatever.
Yeah, I went over everything, and so after I said that, then she saw the human in it, of course, but she was like, "What am I watching? I don't know. Why are you subjecting me to this?"
That's awesome. That's super cool.
Oh man.
Yeah, there were so many different scenes like that. And I mean, I just want to touch on the fact that this film could have failed so many different times in so many different ways based on the subject matter. Like this is the kind of film where it takes, and I strongly believe this, it takes a certain kind of talent to be able to make it work. And I don't think that there are a lot of directors who are capable of pulling that off.
I don't either.
In fact, I mean, I would go so far as to say, as honestly, I think that no one else but James Gunn was able to actually make this as successful as it was. Because, I mean, when I think of like the choice of the characters, these are characters I've never heard of. And granted, like I don't read like every single comic book that exists, but I mean, I've been reading comics, as you know, since I was a teenager, like, I mean, way back in the day. So like, I'm like, okay, well, I have a pretty good idea of kind of who the main listers are, so to speak. And for him to like intentionally go for these lesser known characters, and on top of that, even the storyline and what goes on in it, that is such a creative challenge because it could have easily been laughed off in a bad way, right? Like it could have easily been a huge, colossal failure where people are like, this is horrible, this is terrible. But what's so cool about it is that it reminded me of like a Grindhouse film where like, I don't know if you've seen too many Grindhouse style films, but like.
No, I just like to grind, Russ.
Oh,
in the house.
My. But, you know, Grindhouse films were really popular, especially during like kind of the drive-in theater days.
Right.
And so you had these films that tended to be on the gross side, like overly violent, like not even like if you go to like see like a typical horror movie, it's like, oh, that was kind of scary. It jumped out and scared me and it was kind of gross and horrific. This was more like just, it goes way beyond that to the point where it's just fun. Like you see like so much over the top grossness and stuff. That's what part of what makes it grind. And like the lines are like intentionally like too over the top and cheesy and stuff, but people like that. And I feel like this film was in a direction of that, but I didn't feel as though it was like hands down like a grindhouse film at all. I just think it took the general direction that way to a certain extent when it came to some of the subject material that they went with. But having said that, though, I mean, I was absolutely impressed with the execution of I was just like, I cannot believe I'm having, and my wife loved the movie too. Like we were just like, this is so much fun. Like we don't remember the last time we had this much fun at a theater. And the whole premise is like something that like we didn't think we would like have as much of a blast for, not to mention the fact that it's a complete 180 from the older Suicide Squad movie.
Did you know that Margot Robbie is...
Did you say Marco Robbie?
That my G may have sounded like a C, but I intentionally tried to say Margot.
There you go.
Marco? Polo.
Yeah.
Margot! Polo.
Stunt double.
I think she... Margot? Meet Margot. You heard she's taking a break from doing this whole thing, so we might not be able to have another one of these for quite some time.
I did hear about that, but honestly, man, I think that's okay because she was Harley Quinn in Birds of Prey, and then she went directly from that into this film.
Yeah.
And James Gunn is busy working on Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3.
Right.
You know, even after I've even mentioned that, let's talk about that for a minute. So, like, when we think of the journey that James Gunn has taken, this is really interesting to me because here is a guy who had tremendous success with Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1 and 2, right? Like, arguably, there are people out there who are Marvel fans who will list one of those two movies as, like, their favorite Marvel movie, even ranking it higher than, say, Avengers Endgame, Avengers Infinity War. Like, doesn't matter. Like those are some of the most treasured films. And for me, I mean, like, I would say it's definitely up in, like, probably my within my top 5 Marvel movies ever. And it's just due to the wonderful character development, the sense of humor. And again, like this, it's not like the sense of humor was so like profuse that like, it was like, oh, are we watching a comedy or are we watching an action movie? Like it was balanced appropriately. And for him to be able to go from that to then suddenly getting fired from Disney, if you recall, because he had those tweets from like 10 or 15 years ago, something like that.
I thought that was kind of water underneath the bridge, though. I thought it was a thing for a bit. I mean, I don't.
Well, I'm saying back then, that's what happened. Right. And so then James found himself in this situation of like, okay, well, what do I do now? And so that's when he went over to DC and agreed to direct the Suicide Squad movie, which again, that's a really big risk, considering the fact that the first Suicide Squad movie was not successful at all.
Trash.
And so once again, like there's this big creative challenge on his part to figure out, okay, how do I approach this? Right? Like what is James's vision of the Suicide Squad look like?
Yeah.
So as he's working on that film, then he's able to make some sort of deal with Disney again. Disney comes back to the table, realizes, oh, yeah, we kind of need him to keep directing Guardians of the Galaxy because, no one else can do as good of a job as James. Interesting.
We overreacted. We just want to say we're sorry. Will you come back?
Oh, dude, you know he got some kind of sweetheart deal out of that. I'm actually wondering if one of the stipulations that Disney put into the contract for him was to try and get him to be an exclusive director for all Marvel movies going forward, like no more DC movies. That remains to be seen. I have no idea what the agreements were, but I can say that I think he was in a fantastic position to even remain like as like almost like an open agent, if you will, like being able to direct on both sides. And considering like just the early numbers and the reactions from fans who have seen the Suicide Squad just within the past 2 days, because as of this recording, I saw it last night, which is preview night. And so today's Friday, which is like the official opening day. It's going to be interesting to see what the final numbers are. But I have a feeling he's going to be sitting so pretty in terms of being this successful director for both comic book worlds.
Right.
What a fantastic place to be.
Yeah, it wasn't a one-off with Guardians of the Galaxy or Guardians of the Galaxy 2. And so he's going like, okay, I can do the comic book thing for Disney and I can do it for DC and I can do it for other stuff too. I mean, I'm not a one-trick pony here. And so, I mean, and the fan base recognizes the name too.
Yeah.
And so us as fans, when the next Guardian of the Galaxy comes out, if it said directed by Joe Schmo, we're gonna be like, well, man, we're glad to see this story continue, but we missed that. We missed seeing James Gunn in the credits. I mean that's a great. He's a celebrity.
He's a celebrity, and also too whether he's intending for it or not,
right.
like his name is becoming synonymous with these types of movies that have these outcasts or misfit type characters, or characters that we haven't heard of before, or basically characters that normally probably wouldn't be able to carry a movie as successfully as the ones that he directs. Because even when I think of when I first saw Guardians of the Galaxy, I had never seen this comic book before. I never heard of it. And as far as I knew, I was like, well, it looks like Disney is starting to take some chances now. They've had some success with the movies up to this point, and they want to branch out, but I don't know. I've never heard of this. So I hope it's okay. And I walk out of the theater, I'm like, this is brilliant. This is awesome. Like, I'm gonna go back and see this a few more times in the theater. Like, this is great. And again, I mean, he's been able to repeat that. Going to more of the intro of the Suicide Squad.
Right.
I absolutely loved how it started out, where you see Michael Rooker in that like solitary confinement, but getting his like hour out in the sun kind of thing. And he has that little racquetball with him. First of all, I think he looked really cool with that long blonde white hair, platinum blonde hair. Very, very different from what we're used to.
And I thought he was going to have more of a big role.
Me too.
I'm like, you offed him in the beginning. Like this, you set this character up to be awesome. I mean, he's had a lot of time. He's got X's all over like his cell where he's like, ricocheting that ball and stuff. And he looks real serious, real kind of deadly.
Yeah.
Like, okay, this guy was on, Yanu, I think. Yondu in the Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yes.
Same actor.
But do you remember his name from this film? He even had a cool name in this film.
No, I do not.
Savant.
That's right.
Such a cool name.
And so he's calling people like amateurs, sort of thing, and then he like gets PTSD or something and can't handle explosions and the violence, and he just runs away. And
well, I think he realized at that moment, and again, we're kind of jumping all over the place with this, but like, so he gets introduced at the same time that we get introduced to the seemingly new Suicide Squad.
Right.
And like, you see these different people, like there's that one guy, he's German. I've seen him on Conan O'Brien, and he does a lot of like YouTube posts and stuff, and I think he's hilarious. Do you remember what his name is?
Which character is he? He's not the guy with
Javelin.
He's the Javelin character?
He was a Javelin character, yeah. I don't remember what his name is off the top of my head. I apologize.
I think he's in Saturday Night Live also.
He might make special guest appearances or something, but yeah. But anyway, saw him, I was like, oh my goodness, yes. He's in this? Well, this is going to be fun. And then you do see Pete Davidson, I think his name is, from Saturday Night Live. He's playing, what is that, like, I want to say Black something.
Boomer? It wasn't Boomer. It was
Blackguard.
Blackguard.
Yeah. Pete Davidson was playing Blackguard. And you start seeing like the Weasel guy coming out, and you're like, what on earth is this?
Know.
And so you have like this like seemingly like brand new Suicide Squad characters. And then, Nathan Fillion was like T.D.K. or something.
That was odd. I'm like, what in the world?
And so like literally the only return, well, there was two. So you had Captain Boomerang, who returned from the first film. And honestly, now that I'm thinking about it, I liked Captain Boomerang in the first Suicide Squad movie as well, because he actually embodied being that like just an evil character. Like he was a villain. He was, he was just kind of
Captain Boomerang careful, I'll throw my boomerang at you.
But
It's gonna hurt.
I thought the actor was able to sell it really well, and then the only other actor, of course, is Margot Robbie, who we see returning, and it was awesome to see her come in, and she starts off with that great first line, like, "Oh, sorry, I'm late. I had to go number 2." She's like, "Thank you for telling us." But then something amazing happens that was completely unpredictable, and that is that we see them make their way to the shore. And so at this point, and it's crazy because we have started to buy in. We're now investing as the audience into these new characters. Well, then all of a sudden, they start getting killed left and right.
Yeah, it's a slaughter.
Well, and it's crazy because you have people even like Michael Rooker, for example, who gets killed. And suddenly it's revealed that there is yet another Suicide Squad group who's coming in to the same island on a different place, and they didn't even know the other Suicide Squad group existed. I think that was such a cool idea because it prevents the idea of a Suicide Squad team from having certain members associated with it. It's very interesting because when you think of like the Avengers, for instance, we have been conditioned to think of Captain America, Iron Man, War Machine, Black Widow, Hulk, so on and so forth, right? And we understand that like as time goes on that there will be other types of characters that join the Avengers and that sort of thing. But it is interesting because it becomes more about the identity of being on that team. Suicide Squad, in that moment, it told us how, like, not only can there be anybody a part of the Suicide Squad, but there can be multiple Suicide Squads that exist simultaneously. Like, the main woman in charge probably has multiple versions of these groups all over the world at any given point in time doing her bidding, which I thought was super cool because, again, I was under the impression it's like, oh, the Suicide Squad consists of only these characters. Right. And so, we're going to have, if the film does well, we're going to have all of these sequels and we're going to see the same cast, same characters. No, like it's very much all about like putting together a motley crew squad that can consist of any misfits or villains, and they become a Suicide Squad unto themselves. Did you think that was pretty cool?
I thought it was, I mean, quite honestly, I didn't know what they were doing. I thought, okay, everyone's pretty much dead. I remember seeing other people in the preview. Maybe the preview was like not done yet when I saw it, what's going to happen. And then they brought in the other team and I thought, okay, I see what you're doing here. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I picked up a little bit on that too, where I thought, okay, maybe there's multiple, teams going to different parts at the same time. These guys are doing, this kind of the job. So
it makes them expendable. I think that's one of the things about it is like,
they're very expendable. They're blowing up if they don't get the job done, or they decide they don't like something.
Well, I think what's interesting is that, so the first film, like that was the big focus, right? Was like, you have this bomb that's inserted, in the back of your cranium. Like, if you don't do what we tell you to do, then we're blowing you up. The thing is though, the first Suicide Squad movie, there was only one person that had happened to. Everybody else in the Suicide Squad survived to the end. And that is one of the things that I love about this film, is that this film, they intentionally killed off several people. I mean, like, if you think of the roster of characters that they introduced to us from the moment the film begins versus how many are left by the time the film ends, you're only talking about maybe like 4? I mean, you essentially had Harley Quinn, you had Bloodsport, King Shark, and the Ratcatcher.
Yeah.
That's it. That is it. And if you think about how many characters that consisted of both those Suicide Squad groups were, you're easily talking 10 characters, maybe 13 characters. I mean, like, you had a number of them that existed that didn't exist anymore. And I really appreciate that because it kept me as a viewer on my toes, because it was like, who's going next? I think that was one of the big things about the first film, was like, it was like the threat of having that bomb inserted into each one of them lost its impact, pardon the pun, but like, it began to lose its dread or sense of threat because it wasn't getting used. And even in this one, granted, like the usage of those were also to a minimum, but James made the good call to be able to like go, okay, we're not going to rely on that too much because that's like so much in the audience's face. We're going to have all these other horrific deaths occur, and you're just like, what is happening? What did you think of that entire concept though, of like how, I mean, it reminded me of Game of Thrones in a way, because you had these certain, like Polka-Dot Man.
I didn't want Polka-Dot Man to die at the end. I was like,
I liked Polka-Dot Man.
I kind of like, Polka-Dot Man. I mean, every time they saw his mom, you're like, oh gosh, I'll be crazy too. But I mean, when I saw Polka-Dot Man and the preview, I thought they got to be desperate. Like what kind of character are they bringing in here? And then the more that he had him on screen and he wasn't trying to be somebody spectacular, he was just like, I have this illness that I have to expel. So I'm either expel it myself or at somebody, and it's not going to be fun. And
isn't it weird how like you bought into it though?
Yeah.
Like if you just were just to verbally describe this character to someone who hasn't seen the movie, like again, they would roll their eyes, they would laugh at you, they wouldn't take you seriously, but like that is the worst idea I've ever heard. And yet by the end of it, I'm the same way. We're like, I didn't want to see the guy die. And when he did, I was even shocked because I figured, like they're going to win the day. He's one of the survivors. No, he gets completely stomped on by like a 50-foot or 100-foot high starfish from outer space. Oh, it's a freaking kaiju, man.
By the way, speaking of the starfish, so is there something special about this javelin that I can cut something that the bullets couldn't penetrate?
Okay, so Leslie and I were talking about this too, because she brought up the same thing. She's like, how is she able to get into the eye? And I was thinking, well, I mean, javelins by nature, I mean, they are sharp, right? I mean, like it's a pointy stick. So, and if you think of an eyeball is not particularly tough.
Mine are.
I doubt that. But in terms of who she is, I mean, you figure she's probably about 110, 115 pounds, and she makes the jump with a javelin and she goes right into the eye. And she's, if I were to roughly guesstimate based on the size of the eye versus the size of her, she was probably about the size of a fly. But if you can imagine a fly carrying a little pocket knife and going toward your eyeball, that would hurt.
Yeah, it would. Anyway,
but no, like, and we'll get there. Anyway. Well, unless you want to talk about it now, it's up to you. It's whatever you want.
Let's talk about it now.
Let's just talk.
We're already there.
Let's talk about it now, shall we? So one of the things that I really loved about that whole sequence with Margot Robbie going into the eyeball is the fact that, like, I was thinking about it. I was like, you know what? The solution that exists in an eyeball is incredibly clean. Like, if you think about it, like,
that's true, Russ.
Like the whole, like all the liquid and stuff in there is
solution.
It's pretty much like the cleanest kind of solution that your body has.
And it's got to be because the eyeball's connected right to the brain.
There you go. But I absolutely, again, was not expecting that at all. Because I was thinking about it. I was thinking, okay, what is the significance of this javelin that she is carrying with her going to have? Is it just going to be a memento from Javelin who died and whatever? But clearly, like in film, nothing is by happenstance. There's going to be a purpose for it. This purpose happened to be fantastic. Loved how it was used to plunge into the eyeball. And the visual spectacle of Margot Robbie floating around inside this like eyeball membrane.
I knew you were going to bring that one up.
With the rats swimming in through the hole around her and her. I mean, and again, she is so Harley Quinn. She definitely owns the crazy persona that is Harley. I mean, I feel like we are so grateful to have her be Harley Quinn, and I hope that she can be Harley for many, 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 many years because it's such a perfect casting choice. But I mean, it was so cool to like look at, as the rats began to gnaw on like the blood vessels of the eye, which are like huge and stuff. And you start to see the blood start to like also go into the water, if you will, of the eye and how it's surrounding Margot. But yet she wasn't freak. Like a normal person would be like, how do I get out of here? Yeah. But she was just happy as a clam, just like, oh, this is fun. Just that maniacal insanity. And even when it cuts away and you see Starro stumbling around, I love the visual effects detail of seeing the blood sloshing along with the water in the eye, and something clearly was not working right. And even when Starro fell over and you see Margot jump up out of the eye, those are practical effects. Like the practical effects of that eye membrane that she was able to like leap up onto, and she's just slimy and everything. She's like, I'm good. I just loved it. I was like, this is super cool. And I had found out that there was actually a number of practical effects used throughout this film that James Gunn was really happy about, because in Guardians of the Galaxy, it was pretty much all CGI.
I can imagine that. Yeah. Sounds about right, Rose.
Indeed.
I liked at the end where Starro was kind of communicating with all the bots, in a sense, with the people that had a piece of him on his face. Oh,
the stream of consciousness.
The stream of conscious. That's right. And so towards the end, when he's dying, he speaks through that general.
Yeah.
But it's not something monumental or epic. He was like, I was happy here. Something, I don't know.
Looking up at the stars.
I look up at the stars.
Yeah.
I thought the concept was cool, and I liked how he wasn't just it's almost, he's a King Kong kind of starfish of sorts, Rampage style. And I'm glad that this didn't take it way so serious, and I just liked it. I liked how he died.
Well, again, it's this really dare I say festive, but it was like this thrilling romp through of I mean, again, it's a giant starfish.
Right.
Like that's the thing that again is yet another example of how here's a film where you have this huge Godzilla style. I mean, that's why they even made the reference of the Kaiju. You have this huge starfish wreaking havoc on this South American island, and I bought into it.
Right.
I mean, it was just like, what? But furthermore, like I could tell, even like as I'm watching it, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm buying into this. I'm totally fine buying. I was like, I don't feel guilty for doing so. Like, it's the funniest thing, and it just made it that much more fun. And I was also really pleased with the various action shots. Like there was that one shot in particular where you have Bloodsport who like he puts together that like really cool nanotech gun thing. That was super cool. And by the way, his helmet and actually his whole suit,
awesome.
Yeah, whole outfit gets an A+ for me. I really like that a lot. And in addition to that, you'll remember how like he goes through all of his shots. So then he starts barking orders at the other members of his team, and he tells Harley Quinn to like get up onto a higher elevation or get up on top of the building. And you see her as the camera's panning around, like jumping up onto the building, and it looks real. It doesn't look like she's on wires or anything like that.
Or styrofoam.
Or anything like that.
Styrofoam, yeah.
But it was like this continuous shot where like you see that happen, and then like you see him talking to King Shark and saying, nom nom.
Nom nom, yeah.
Yeah. And he's like, that's nom nom. He's like, yo,
Okay.
I mean, it was, dare I say, the DC equivalent of when Captain America tells Hulk, smash.
Right.
In the Avengers. And I'm not afraid to say it. I'm not shameful to say it. I think it was well-deserved right here. But you see that happen, and then all of a sudden you see like the Polka-Dot Man thing too. He's like, that's your mother.
That's your mother. Yeah.
So good. And even that, because we had, that's the coolest thing too. That gag was repeated several times throughout the movie, and it never got old. It was it kept getting funnier, like seeing it happening time and time again.
They knew the secret sauce because they did it all the time. It would have lost its charm, but they did it just enough where it never did lose its charm, and it just gained more humor as we went on. I mean, I think they referenced it like maybe 3 times.
Sure.
I think. But the times that they did reference it, like, of course, toward this example, and then the other one where they're all looking at it when they discover it for the first time, and they're all in costume, and now they have like this, big kind of, Karen looking face that's kind of evil, you're like, oh, I've been going crazy also. And I forgot the third time they mentioned it, but anyway, whatever.
Yeah. No, it was so fun. Again, I go back to that word. It was so fun. It was like, it's going to be like one of those movies that like I can put on in the background time and time again and never get tired of it. Like there are so many movies out there that exist where like I'll see once or twice and I will never see it again. Or maybe there'll be other films where like, yeah, I'll pull it out like every 5 to 10 years and watch it again and I'll be good. But there is that certain pile of movies that you never get tired of. Sometimes you'll watch it with popcorn and have your full attention on, but other times you'll be like just working or doing something and you will want it on in the background just because. This movie is definitely one of those types of films. I feel like I think it's a lot of fun.
Here's where I stumble a little bit with it is that, the jokes are funny, but I don't feel like they're witty enough that I would have as good of a time, watching the movie multiple times. I watched it last night, and then I started watching it again today, and I had the volume up higher, which was better and made a better experience, but the jokes then were not as funny because I already saw them again like last night. Maybe that would have been different had we seen it together.
Sure,
because the laughter is
it's contagious.
Yeah. But my fear is that I want to see it again, but I definitely want to wait a while before seeing the film in its entirety. I fear that yes, you are right. It's a movie to have in the background, but I wouldn't want to have it in the background because I would remember the jokes and then I would predict them the next time I really wanted to have a full experience with it, and I wouldn't laugh as much.
Yeah, and I think it's not a film that you would want to see on a daily basis or in rapid succession or anything like that. But in terms of like more of like having it be as part of your regular rotation of those types of movies. I mean, for me, like I think again, it's not one of those movies that demands your attention. It's just a fun roller coaster ride.
Yeah.
Another scene that was super fun and again unpredictable was when Harley Quinn goes and meets with the new leader or dictator,
El Presidente.
El Presidente. Yes. And I absolutely loved it. I thought it was super fun. In fact, my wife noticed how in this movie, Harley actually had multiple hairstyles. And she was really pleased to see that. She loved how there was kind of this journey that her hair went on before it got back to being in the pigtails again. And how there were certain types of visuals that were made, like, when she shoots the president, how like he gets shot and it cuts over back to her and her hair goes down and because her hair is red, it like kind of makes that connection to the blood of getting shot kind of thing. Like little clever editing techniques and that sort of thing. But that whole sequence of, first of all, that montage of them together was gorgeous. Like if you looked at, I don't know if you noticed the colors and the cinematography throughout the entire movie, honestly, but this was definitely one of the highlights for me was like the various shots where like they're playing with the birds or they're at the dinner table or whatever. Like the lighting was like on point. The colors totally were popping. Like the framing was fantastic. Do you agree?
I picked up on that. Yeah, I noticed the cinematography and then the framing and whatnot. And it was good. I mean, it was constantly kind of on the move. So like, and not necessarily like drone style, but I mean, like if you were walking by and were watching them, and there was more to it than just that scene though too. Like there was times in that little government building where they're directing orders or whatnot, or they're thinking about the next move or what have you, and the camera is spinning a bit, but it's not Dizzy style or it's not Matrix style. It's just enough so where like if you were walking in the room like, man, that person's really frustrated or flustered, or I'm not, I'm going to keep my head down, just keep my, if you were an employee of sorts, that's what it reminded me of.
Yeah, and I love too how once again James never forgot about how these are villains, how these are characters that are not heroes. They're very much anti-heroes. They're being forced to do this type of work.
Dirty work.
And, it was exemplified in this instance where, the El Presidente was able to, in his mind, he figured he was able to woo Harley to his side and marry her and be able to try and increase his power and that sort of thing. And I was also buying into that. We're like, oh, okay, so the story's going to be that, Harley has convinced herself that this is her new man and everything else, and that's going to cause a new challenge for the remaining members of the Suicide Squad to complete their mission. And so I was already formulating oh, maybe this is what's going to happen now and stuff. And as I'm going through that, she shoots him. As soon as he turned around, just bam. And I even kind of jumped a bit because I was totally not expecting that moment. And to hear her little ramble after that too, I'm like, you are nuts.
Yeah.
You are seriously insane. And I love it.
I think that my favorite part of that sequence when she's saying, I think I prefer you here on the floor with all those nasty thoughts just pouring out of your head. The blood started to pool. I was like, my gosh, I kind of like it and I kind of don't at the same time. Does that mean there's something wrong with me too?
Oh, it was such good script writing. If you think about all the different lines in that movie too, it is to be commended for sure. And going even jumping from that scene to more of the moment where Flag and Peacemaker are fighting each other. Where Peacemaker fancies himself as this do-gooder and he's totally just woo. He makes a lot of justifications of things that are just wrong and evil and everything. And to see him kill Captain Flag, I was I was thinking that there's no way it's going to happen because he's one of the mainstays because he was in the first Suicide Squad and everything else. He gets taken out. And not only that, but the sheer hypocrisy of what Peacemaker's name supposedly stands for, how the last line he says is Peacemaker. What a joke.
Yeah, what a joke, yeah.
And the way he even died too is just so brutal, having that piece of
shard of tile
or concrete
or something, yeah.
So you have moments like that where it reinforces a lot of the fact that's these characters, they're not do-gooders. Sometimes they're doing things and you start to kind of forget and all of a sudden you get reminded. No.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I like the rats, Russ.
Talk about it, Steve. Tell me why you like the rats.
I thought the rats were a different kind of sort of comedy of sorts. I could see how James Gunn maybe have adopted what the humor was with Groot, for example, with the rats. Be sort of non-verbal and of sorts, and they're waving they're just so innocent, and you think the rats are so dirty and plague ridden,
you dirty rat,
and they're giving peace offerings, or they're waving or trying to shake someone's hand and whatnot. I just thought it wasn't hilarious, but I thought it was pretty funny and original. And I didn't really get the whole how she could control him with the wand. I figured it'd be more telepathic, but maybe I guess it kind of worked hand in hand. But
yeah, I'm not sure how that works either. But again, that provides opportunities for maybe some possible standalone films. As far as I'm concerned, that actor who played Ratcatcher, I thought she did a phenomenal job too. Again, these characters are hard to sell to the audience.
Right.
It's one thing if you're Batman or Superman or Captain America or Wolverine or whatever.
Spider-Man's hard though. You can't do Spider-Man.
We're gonna have you play a character called Ratcatcher. And you control the rats.
Man, it's my dream right there. I wanted to play the Ratcatcher. 2.
However, the actor that, like I said, she really pulled it off. She did a great job.
Yeah.
So another scene that's worth mentioning also is the whole Milton scene. That was so funny because in the back of my mind, I'm seeing this guy and he's doing his thing, but I don't think too much of him, but he's kind of always there. He's like in the getaway car. He's like
unloading stuff.
Yeah. He's giving supplies or he's walking with them and stuff. And then he gets off. And I love how it wasn't just one of those hapless extras where he's never thought of again. They turned it into a thing. Like it was the funniest thing how like Polka-Dot Man was like really shocked and like mournful of his death. And he's like, they killed Milton. And everyone's like, who's Milton? He's like, how do you not know who Milton is? He's been with us the entire time. And like just the exchange going back and forth between him and Margot Robbie and Idris. It was just the funniest thing, like having that dynamic. And then even, once again, they repeat the joke. Again, it's like this, these things just worked. Where like, even at the end, like Margot called Idris Milton. He's like, that's not my name. And she's like, yeah, it is. We've been talking about it for the last 3 hours. Again, it's so cool that they were, and at least in my opinion, they were able to tell and retell the same gag or joke over and over again. It was just as funny. And again, that wasn't the only part of the secret sauce. Like there were like all kinds of decisions made in this that, quite honestly, I mean, I was duly impressed. But let's switch over to trivia, courtesy of IMDb.
Great.
Okay. I'm going to start reading some of these off to you here, Steve.
Okay.
First of all,
yes,
James Gunn specifically filled the Suicide Squad with obscure and unknown villains since he felt that was more faithful to the squad in the comics.
Good man.
Quote, I wanted to stick with John Ostrander's original vision of mostly second-rate antagonists. There is an innate tragic element to supervillains who aren't even that good at being bad. Very insightful. As for how James Gunn got Sylvester Stallone to voice the role, it didn't take a whole lot of convincing. Gunn said to him, quote, I wrote this role for you in the Suicide Squad. It won't take too much of your time. And Sylvester Stallone replied, oh yeah? To which Gunn said, yeah, it's...
Oh yeah?
Yeah. It's a big, kind of chubby human-eating shark. To which Stallone said, well, anything for you, brother.
Anything for you, brother. Like, I didn't know we were bros, but glad we are now.
Yeah, well, I'm so touched.
Fist bump.
Idris Elba was initially hired to replace Will Smith as Floyd Lawton Deadshot, but it was later decided that Elba would play a new character, which we now know as Bloodsport, to allow Smith to return in the future. So his character is not gone. He's going to be making a return back, which honestly, I think is a mistake. And I'm saying that as a Will Smith fan. Will Smith is a hero. He's a protagonist. Seeing him as a villain, I'm sorry, man. I just don't.
Yeah. Plus, I think in the original Suicide Squad, from what I can put together, he didn't really sell me on the character either. I mean, he was like the badass marksman shooter guy.
Yeah.
But I mean, he's kind of always that in a lot of his films. You know, he's shooting. He's really on target. And so to see him do that once again, I thought, okay, yeah, I get it. But I think Idris did a better job of selling the role.
Yeah, no, he definitely did a better job with the role that he had, and also too, just it just worked. Like
Right.
Again, Will Smith. Like again, when I say that, it's because I'm thinking of Will Smith from Men in Black, Will Smith in The Wild Wild West.
Wild Wild West.
I mean, Will Smith as Muhammad Ali.
Yeah.
You know, like he's in. I mean, there's tons of other films where like. He plays the protagonist. He's great at it. Like that is his forte. When he goes into more of a villain role, it's like, man, I can't get there. Like I was willing to have an open mind when I saw him in the first Suicide Squad movie. I'm like, no, I'm sorry. You're the good guy. So anyway, that's just one man's opinion.
No, I don't think Margot Robbie played well with Will Smith either. They didn't seem to have like the camaraderie or the chemistry that Idris and Margot had in this one. Did you? I mean, yeah, no.
I mean, I thought the chemistry was fine for what it was in the first film. I just don't think the first film was good. That's the problem.
Fine.
Speaking of Margot Robbie, she said that she would be playing Harley Quinn for as long as possible. Yes. As she loved playing her in the DC Extended Universe. And finally, Kevin Feige and Marvel Studios co-president Louis D'Esposito visited the set of the Suicide Squad during filming. James Gunn. What?
What's up, guys? Hey.
James Gunn took several precautions to try avoiding details about the film leaking, such as referring to Elba's character in the script and on set as Vigilante to prevent his actual role from being revealed, and also not to give some of the actors script pages from after their characters' deaths. That blows my mind, because here you have a DC film and the president of the Marvel Cinematic Universe struts onto set. Like, whoa. I understand, like, you know, there's a pre-existing relationship between Kevin Feige and James Gunn, but whoa, like, I'm shocked that Warner Brothers was like, man, sure, come on the set. Yeah, we'll get on time. Not a problem. You know, just like, color me surprised.
Yeah, no kidding. That's a competitor right there.
It's a competitor indeed. But you know what? At the end of the day, they're all friends. They're all creatives. They're all just interested in seeing what the other is up to. You know, I get it. Steve, please tell us your conclusion and rating.
So I would say that this was a pleasant go-round with the DC universe. I haven't been a fan of DC really for quite some time. It's been a kind of a constant disappointment. And
are you sure? Disappointment?
Many of them in my mind have been a disappointment.
Like the Zack Snyder Justice League?
Yeah, well, kind of, sort of, yeah.
Man of Steel?
Well, that was a while ago. I mean, Batman and Man of Steel were a while ago, and then we've had like a bad Wonder Woman.
We had a good one.
We had a good one, and then we had a bad one. We had Batfleck, and then we had Justice League, and then I don't know. So it's been a roller coaster at best.
Mixed bag, perhaps?
Mixed bag. Mostly the presents you don't want at Christmas.
Underwear again.
So anyhow, I thought the script was fantastic. I thought that the casting was great. I thought it was brilliant to have James Gunn behind the wheel. One thing I didn't say earlier was King Shark I thought was going to be a wasted character. I think I said those words even when we saw the preview when we did that podcast that day. And he was actually a great character, and I liked him quite a bit. I liked the use that they had with him. So, like I said, the one thing that's really hindering it from getting a higher rating for me is that even though the jokes were funny and original and the whole story was not predictable to me whatsoever. I was surprised the whole thing. It's the type of movie where I don't feel that I should or would watch it very often because it would become predictable. It would become less funny to me. Mm-hmm. So that being said, yes, it gives me new life for what DC is going to come with next, especially with the Suicide Squad, with the right director. My rating, I would say, is a 3.5.
A 3.5.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Steve. Thank you. Well, as I have been sounding like a broken record during this entire show, and I'm not afraid to say it, I think that this film had a lot to... Let me put it this way.
Okay.
This film could have failed so many different ways and could have been a disaster. It could have been a catastrophe. And I am so happy and thrilled. And just that it's the complete opposite. It is a fantastic film, super fun film. It's a roller coaster of a ride. I cannot believe. I mean, it's amazing to me when I think of the first Suicide Squad movie versus this one, and how when I saw the first Suicide Squad movie, like it was one of those experiences where I was just like, I just wrote it off. I was like, even before I saw the movie, I thought this was questionable at best. I didn't think it was going to be anything really good about it. And, oh, look, I'm right. It's awful, whatever. I wrote it off. Then this comes along, and now I am this really big fan of the Suicide Squad. I definitely think that it is one of those instances where it's lightning in a bottle. I think it's insane because James Gunn was able to do that with Guardians of the Galaxy. And I thought, okay, that was a thing. That was a thing for Guardians of the Galaxy. I don't think it's possible to recapture that same lightning in a bottle again. And he did. He did it with this. And that is no small thing at all.
No small feat.
No small feat indeed. I would say probably, like, if I had to critique something about the film, probably the one thing I would critique is the fact that I didn't think the Thinker, the character, the Thinker.
Yes.
I don't think he got enough character development.
I don't even think so either.
I think visually he looked interesting. He looked cool. I liked the actor, but it was kind of surprising to me how we really didn't get to know him more.
And they had a build up with him. Like he's the only one who could control.
Right.
Starro.
Mm-hmm.
And then he just can't control him at all. I thought, man, well, that was a build up for nothing. They just killed him, and that was that.
Yeah, I was a bit surprised by that. So that was one of the things that was very few and far between where I was like, yeah, I wish there was a bit more to that. Otherwise, when I think of, again, the sheer amount of characters that were in the film and how like half of them only had like maybe 5-10 minutes of screen time. Even in that 5 to 10 minutes, I found myself bonding with these characters. I was having a lot of fun with them. I was actually, horrified and sad to see them go. I mean, even when you see the Weasel like drown, you're like, oh my gosh. And like, just a minute ago, I was totally creeped out and grossed out by him sitting in the plane. And then to watch him drown, I felt bad. And it's that constant back and forth where James was able to
make you care about all the characters.
Well, like if you think about like a spectrum of like all these different emotions that you could have as an audience member toward any given character, like on average, you'll have directors that will hit like certain ones on that spectrum, but then other ones will either be missed or will fail to hit the mark kind of thing. And you saw like such a broad range of all kinds of different types of emotions. And you saw it with multiple characters. It wasn't like it was just with like Margot Robbie because she's Margot Robbie. Oh, we have to flesh this character out because she's the superstar. No, it's like they did it with Polka-Dot Man. They did it with King Shark. They did it with Bloodsport. I mean, like they did it with all these different characters. And even the characters that were working for the woman who like sent him on this mission, they were not in the first Suicide Squad movie, and he gave them personality too. Like I love how they were like taking bets as to like who would die first and stuff. And she comes in, she's like, "What are you doing?"
Just a normal meeting.
Good meeting, guys.
Yeah.
No, we're good. This is casual.
Really normal
meeting.
around here. Yeah,
it's okay. Just again, it's infusing that personality into even these more supportive roles. So, if I had to give it a rating, which I'm happy to do, I would give this film 4.5 stars. That's where I would give it, and I would happily do so. I want to give a very big congratulations to James Gunn as well as the cast and crew of this. Everyone just hit it out of the park as far as I'm concerned. It's amazing to me what you were able to accomplish with this. And I got to say, like, especially in this day and age, I really needed something fun. And I got it in the Suicide Squad. Like it is a capital fun movie as far as I'm concerned.
Capital F.
F, yeah. That wraps up this episode of Joygasm. Thanks for hanging out with us. If you enjoyed this episode, we invite you to check out patreon.com/Joygasm, where you can enjoy exclusive perks and early access to the show. Not to mention, it helps us continue doing what we love to do. Also, make sure you explode that subscription button. Maybe clang that notification bell. That way you will
Javelin it right in the eyeball.
Ooh, I like the way he thinks. That's very good. That way you won't miss a single episode of Joygasm, which drops once a week, every week. You can also do a search for us on social media. Just do an @Joygasm TV. Last but not least, do a search for Joygasm TV on Twitch to see us stream our gaming adventures live every Wednesday night at 9:30 p.m. Central Time. We look forward to hanging out with all of you again next week.
See you guys.